Brad and Steve Carlisle. And these 4 were among the 7 families who helped start CrossPoint in the first place 10 years ago. And so I've asked them to come and kind of share with us today. Thank you guys for being willing to do this. Really appreciate it. And thank you more so for starting this church. And let's start there. Like when you think back 10 years ago, what was kind of the driving force or really that compelled you to say, we've got to start a new church in Maysville?
Good question. There was, I was a latecomer to the Nazarene church. I came from the Methodist church and was always used to a lot of traditional. So when I came to the Nazarene, and it was more upbeat, more informal, more today's life type of thing. So to me, that's what drew me to the Nazarene church to start with. And I saw a lot of what began to happen where more and more people started. So I knew that, I don't want to say necessarily label it as contemporary, but yeah, we're contemporary. But the more modern approach to church was bringing more and more people in. Mm-hmm. So to me, it was a no-brainer to say, hey, there's where we're reaching people that weren't reached before by traditional churches.
Right. Good.
We really noticed that there was an age group we were missing, which was the 20 to 30s then. Mm-hmm. And we were afraid that, the big push was to try to get that group back in, because they're the next generation of church leaders, and we felt like we were losing that.
Right.
So in the midst of the fact that the way the church was being done, we felt like we were losing that population, and church wasn't exciting to them. And what ended up turning out is that also affected our kids, and now it's affecting their kids, which has been great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I also remember KJ telling a story about he had brought a friend to church with him, mm-hmm. and he never came back because he didn't feel welcomed, mm-hmm. and I don't know if he was. I can't remember the whole story completely, but that story always stuck in my mind. That you have those people that show up at church that nobody really knows, and I kind of felt like it was a part of us to get this started for those people. Like now we talk about 4, but really back then it was about 1. It was about that one person that mm-hmm. that didn't know what was going on, or didn't know what we were talking about, or hadn't really maybe even been to church, and then they never came back because, like Paul said, that group wasn't coming, and we kind of felt like we needed to do something about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Are you going to say something, Scott?
Yeah, I'll just kind of piggyback on what Kevin said. For me, it was more personal in that aspect, because we were always taught growing up, invite people to church. Invite people to church, invite people to church. But you want to really be able to invite somebody to church and really want them to come someplace that they're going to feel welcome, comfortable. So a lot of the times that we were taught to invite people to church, we were inviting them to maybe to churches that we wouldn't really want to be in ourselves. If we didn't, especially if we didn't, weren't familiar with church or hadn't grown up that way. And so like not just reaching that certain age group, but also just those folks that had either just completely given up. Mm-hmm. There's a time in Maysville, I don't feel like there was a church for those folks that had really, they were finished with church.
Right.
They had already turned that off. So, trying to make a place for them, trying to create some kind of environment where folks could not just be recognized, but maybe be invisible at first, and allow themselves to at least, be open to being in church or to listening.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to make it even more than just inviting, to invite them and they would want to stay and come back, not just invite them and then never see them again. Mm-hmm. And then your numbers are up and it looks all big, but we want them to keep coming back. And it was more about inviting them and then getting them to stay, hopefully.
And it's this, going along the same thing. It's providing the environment, number one, that you want to invite them. You want to share what you're doing, and that you know that they would appreciate, grow, and you can mentor them as they keep on going. Like Kevin says, there have been places where I didn't want to be there, much less ask anybody else to show up either. So that was one of the main driving things. That was one of the things why I think when things first started off, one of the things Steve and Vicki Stickleader kind of took over and started with was the greeters. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of like a side thing, but that was the most important thing
Right.
Starting off the church, that you wanted people to feel comfortable from the time they walked in the door. There's nothing worse than going, because that's very easy to withdraw yourself, and regardless of what's going on, if you're withdrawing, you're not going to absorb anything.
Right.
So the emphasis was make everyone feel comfortable when coming in.
And you guys created that culture from the very beginning that we still hear people say that. That's why they stayed here, you know?
Yeah, we had that saying, invest and invite. So obviously you're invested in people that are around you, the people at work and those things. So the people that already know you, those hopefully should be the easier people to ask.
Right.
But again, you wanted that environment. Then we had this other saying that we don't need to have a reason to have fun.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, maybe we were a little cutting the edge at times instead of cutting edge.
Dancing nuns.
But again, we were bringing out things that were in everyday life, and we might have been using those as openers or attractors to let people know that we were just like them.
Right.
We're not perfect. We're we're just like you, and we like to have fun. And the things that we see that on TV, we're gonna use those as things that we can do locally, and
Right.
just have fun, and that's going to be what you're going to experience.
So, guys, you all were here in the very beginning. Those first months, blood, sweat, and tears you gave. What do you remember about those first weeks, months of starting the church together?
I remember being part of the setup crew every morning when we were at the intermediate school and out to, what was the other place, guys?
DFW, but
No, before that, Highland. And how much fun we get up early, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, and go set that up, fight in the weather sometimes. It'd be real cold. And how, it didn't seem like it was a job or it was anything hard to do. It was just, we liked being there with each other, and, and it seemed fairly easy to do it.
Yeah, that's cool.
I think just the rarity of being with a group that there were no individual agendas, no classic issues that you always see in churches, the things we grew up with. We appreciated it some then, but we appreciate it more now, looking back at that. Everybody having a common goal, a common vision. And I'm sure we did have our own agendas and issues, but they were secondary. They never got in the way. And that was always, like I said, we didn't realize how good we had it at times. I used to joke that it worried me because it seemed like that sometimes there was no resistance. And
Everything worried you, though.
no, but that didn't work. I was like, this is easy. What's the ball's about to drop. And no, we were just on the same page.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, that was that. Remember the old movie, Close Encounters, Third Kind? Everybody had the same vision, the same thoughts, the same timing and everything, and kind of met at that mountain. It was the same thing here. It was this group kind of gravitated together, and to me, there never was a decision. I don't think a decision was made, we're going to do this. Everybody came and says, okay, let's go. So it was very easy because everybody was pretty well the same mindset. We all had different opinions about how to approach things, but nothing really that. I mean, yeah, set up and tear down was tough, man. But we had fun. Sometimes too much fun, but yeah, we had fun.
Sometimes that's why it took us so long to get it done. We were having too much fun.
Yeah,
Goofing
yeah,
around
yeah.
and stuff.
I just remember that, the more after the fact now, I know it may be hokey, but I think it was really God ordained. I think we were being pushed by a power higher than us and focused by that. And I guess we're probably saying that it's time that we do this. And we were just the vessels at that point, but again, had the same common vision.
Right.
Didn't have to worry about us not having that one vision, which was to start this church for, as we used to say, other people.
Yeah.
at that
And
point.
what's incredible to me as somebody coming very late into this is to see how what you guys are talking about, you can still see as a part of the culture and a way that's been passed down to another group of people, another group, and it's continued to grow, but the vision has stayed the same, and that's pretty incredible what you guys have done and the tone you set. That's unheard of, and to have all of you still here and serving and involved, that's not That doesn't happen at churches that are planted. I mean, it's incredible.
Well, one of the things, and I'll always remember Scott Skaggs said this. Don't get nervous. But early on when we were going through, what are the elements that make people feel comfortable? What portions make them feel uncomfortable? What hesitations do things bring into people? And so we were going through all of the elements of both the worship service and the experience. And when it got down to the offering, and it was discussed on what to do with the offering, and the suggestion was, I can't remember who did it. It didn't matter. But we had what was his name?
Tom. It was my suggestion.
Okay,
We go
all
with
right.
Tom.
We had Tom, where you put all your tithes and offerings in and back, and the discussion about that. And somebody said something about not taking up offering, and Scott, in his dry sense of humor and never cracked a smile, said, "Are we trying to win people to Christ, or are we trying to make money?" And at that point in time, says, Tom's it.
Right.
That's it. And so that was one of the things I think helped set the tone from, people get uncomfortable when you throw a plate underneath their nose and say, give money.
Right.
And that kind of, I think, spread out to a lot of the other elements as well.
That makes sense.
Tom was tithes, offering, and mission. By the way.
Okay.
So it did have. There were no periods though, so
Right.
people didn't get confused. So.
And if people want to see one, there's still one in the hallway with the Kid XP.
I wanted to do a mannequin, but they wouldn't go.
The first ones were cardboard.
Cardboard.
Yes, they were. That's right.
So when you now we're 10 years later, and if you could have, when you think about where you started and where it is now, what gets you most excited? What's most encouraging to say yes? We sat around in a room and we hoped and prayed for something like this, and here it is. We can see it coming to fruition now. Is there anything like that stands out to you?
Well, I think the one thing that stands out for me, and us three had some young kids. Steve didn't because he's really old. But
Shut up.
I remember when we first started talking about doing this, I really wanted something for my kids to be, we talked about that group, for them to be involved and be a part of the church. And I think that's awesome to see when you come to church, all the young people that are here.
Yeah.
And serving, leading,
And they have been from the get-go, like yours,
Yeah.
from the very first day.
Yeah.
Kids have always been a part of it.
And how they're, even as they get older, they're staying and still leading.
Right.
Whether it's like Zane off in college,
Yeah.
Doing what he wants to do, to everybody else, kids that are, Alex up here singing, which I still can't get over sometimes seeing her up here singing, because.
A lot more talented to Scott.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's
Well, she hasn't fallen off the stage yet, like Scott has, so that's good for her. But for me, it was always a little bit. Well, not a little bit. A lot about the kids and
that's
what they
powerful.
were going to grow up in.
Cool.
I think there's no doubt. Zane's been influenced. Brandon and Haley for me.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're both pastors because of not only feeling a calling, but because of what we did.
Right.
Well, I need to piggyback off that too, because Brady told me not to mention his name while we're up here.
Okay.
So Brady Sanders is my son, so I just wanted to mention that, so he'll get ticked as he
Good.
watches this.
Good.
Well, we've got another one, Austin.
That's right.
I really, really feel. I mean, Austin's always been a part of it
Right.
and grew up in it, and
We know who our group is, but I remember sitting in those meetings. I mean, we had a vision. As far as having a plan, that should be encouraging now. Because when you feel like that imposter syndrome, do I really know what I'm doing? We really didn't know what we were doing.
Right.
And at the time, even though church planning was really becoming in vogue, the more research you did, the more you read, nobody really knew what they were doing. Every town was different, every church was different, every group was different. So we, not that we were winging it, but we were taking it one step at a time because there wasn't a blueprint for it.
Right.
And going back to, like John and Austin and Brandon and that crew, they really planted the church. They were doing the work before we ever left, before we ever, started this process. They, and looking back at those times, they really weren't in the background. we say, we were trying to influence them. They were doing the hard work. Now, they were still kids, and they were teens, and they were goofy and dumb at times, but man, they were putting in hours.
Right.
And even if they weren't putting in the direct work, when we saw that, you can't just let that. You can't let that die. That's the generation. That's that generation now.
Right.
We're seeing the fruits of that. But I've told people that for the last 10 years, teens really planted the church.
Yeah.
And so seeing kids volunteer now and step up into leadership, that's just a continuation.
Right.
That doesn't happen in a lot of churches
No,
either.
it's incredible.
Not the ones
Yeah.
I grew up in. It was always, you never, unless there was a Christmas play
Right.
or some kind of little musical thing they're doing, but they never did lead or take
You always
part.
slept in church when you
Or-
were younger.
What?
You always slept in church when you were younger.
Maybe
mean,
you did. Oh God.
They were putting in 16, 17-hour Sundays
Right.
and excited to do it and excited to do it again and do it again and do it again. And that just was not normal.
Right. And again, that's continued. 10 years later, it's still happening. We're still seeing kids talking to Matthias this Sunday, and he's moving a table and helping with set. And he's like, when can I do this again? That's something much bigger going on than just moving a table. It's, and you guys set the tone for that. It's cool. Well, what would you tell us as we look forward towards the next 10 years? What do you hope? I don't know. What advice would you give us as a church? What kind of a encouraging warning would you give us? You're the prophets now. You've seen, you saw the future. You've now walked into it. What do you tell us? What do we need to hear as we go into the future that you hope that would encourage us and inspire us to keep moving forward?
Well, I remember the first Sunday. How many did we have that first Sunday? Wait, 20 some?
I think it was if you count
Just
the first
families,
Sunday,
just us, wasn't it? Just us and our
if
families.
you count the first Sunday of September when we officially launched,
Yeah.
there was 191.
Okay.
Okay, but the first one
The
was
very first Sunday was
30.
that Memorial
About
Day. I
30.
think we had 30 of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I just think back to that and how before the whole COVID thing, how now sometimes we don't have enough seats for whatever service or whatever's going on. And you look, then we're looking at Maysville. Now we got Bracken County, Robertson County, Fleming County, Lewis County, East End,
Right.
Augusta. I mean, it's just amazing to me how far, and for the future, man, I tell you, I don't know. It's, it could be whatever we want it to be. I mean, how much farther we want to go, I guess that's what we need to decide as a church. Is if that's good enough, then I think it kind of defeats the purpose and why we got the whole thing started in the first place.
That's right.
So
That's good.
I like to see us, just keep getting bigger, more people coming, and just continue to grow and not lose, like I said, what we started this on in the first place, just to keep it all rolling.
Right. Good. Thank you.
I like the part that I think I might have brought a little bit into the group to start. I'm a builder. I like to make things. I like to build things. So when we first started up, man, I was in heaven because we needed consoles. So whatever we needed, I'd built, and I loved that. And getting the whole thing up and started, and now seeing others kind of fill in behind me and do some of those things. Now, really, what excites me is like the Bracken County, because to me, it's been built up. We didn't build it up; God did. We were just happy to be along for the ride, and I'm grateful that it was. But now that Bracken County and these other campuses are starting up, it's like, oh boy, here we go again.
Right.
So to turn around, and I'm getting kind of a renewed and refreshed from, okay, now we've got these others, let's get them up and going too. So God's running show. We're just hanging on white knuckle for the ride.
Right. That's a good way of putting it.
You got anything, Scott?
The only advice I would give, and this is the same advice I have to remind myself of all the time, and this is really for the folks, those of us that are here, folks who are already invested, and folks that are really, buying into that vision, and that's that it's rarely about you. rarely. And that's a constant battle, a constant
Yeah.
fight, about, our comforts, and our wants, and our issues, and those are all barriers.
Right.
And so, once you convince yourself of that, and once you kind of practice that, it opens things up immensely, for that one person walking through the door.
Yeah.
So if there's a song I don't like, well, good.
Mm-hmm.
If there's an issue or something I don't agree with, on the surface that's about me.
Right.
It doesn't matter when it comes to that vision.
Yeah, that's good.
I
Thank you.
guess that's always the thing that worries me is why we did this in the first place. We can't become that generation. We
Yeah.
can't become that comfortable, complacent generation that has to fit the other people that are needing to come in the door into our box.
Yeah.
And so our box needs to constantly be open. We need to be able to look at ourselves and be willing to go to the next level, even though right now things are a lot easier to set up every day because
Right.
it's already set up. And, but this has all come because we've listened and we've gone forward, and there's still more to do.
Right.
So.
That's good. Well, Scott and Kevin, and Paul and Steve, and then also Brian and Michael and Kelly. And behind you all, there's wives, children, all kinds of folks that represents. On behalf of CrossPoint, and these, it just seems really too little, but I hope you'll receive it, how much we appreciate. I can say, my family can say how much we appreciate you all and what you've done in creating a church like this, and what you've given and sacrificed. There's no way of keeping track of all those hours and the sacrifices you all made, and we really appreciate it, and it's made a difference. I know it's making a difference in my family's life and my kids' life and many other people, and so we thank you guys for stepping out and doing that so that we could be here 10 years later and have something to celebrate and also something to look forward to. Yeah. So thank you guys. Paul, would you mind praying for our church as we get ready to celebrate this Sunday 10 years?
Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you today, and we just are awed by the fact that we feel that your presence has been in this church since the beginning. We felt empowered by you to create what you have shown us to do and to bring the message to people that may not have heard it in a different way, but not change the actual message. The method is different, but the message is still the same. We thank you that you give us creative minds and that you give us hearts to worship and the praise that we can give you weekly and daily. And we just always want to realize that you are the giver of all and the creator of all. And may we continue to show to others the love that you have. And may we never forget that you're the reason that we are here, and that you're the reason that gives hope for us for the future, and that we can live that way. And may we continue to show that to others in the way that we go through the week, and the way that we go through lives, and the way that we model our church to the community from here and for the next years to come. We ask these things in your name, Jesus. Amen.
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 Well, I thank you all for being with us today. And if you have your own memories you want to share over the years from CrossPoint, or if you have something you want us to be praying about for the future of CrossPoint, we'd love to